It's frustrating. Hearing all these experts and mainstream media can make it seem like this whole quote-unquote the economy thing is a scam. What do you mean money can just go kapoof? You are right. It does not. Sort of. Bear with me. This video can be roughly broken into 1. The terminologies and the things you'll got so wrong about inflation and deflation, with the example of that chart by Mark Joseph Perry from the American Enterprise Institute, revisualized by Visual Capitalist. 2. How in the hell can deflation actually be bad? 3. The ultimate explanation of how inflation and deflation happen. At the root, inflation means the dollar bill losing value, purchasing power, whatever. Deflation, the opposite. That's not helpful at all. How can we know when you see it? Let's turn to how it's been measured. Grossly oversimplified, inflation happens when the weighted average price of everything in a particular currency unit going up, the price of all things collectively going up, not one single thing. In the opposite direction, deflation means the prices of everything going down. Sounds good? Probably not, not even in moderation. Here's why. Quick note, inflation is how fast prices going up. As long as it's greater than 0, that means prices keep going up, no matter how low. About that chart by Visual Capitalist, many have pointed to as an argument for deflation being a good thing. 2 things to point out. A. That's no deflation. It states very clearly at the corner, quote, price levels have increased by 74% since 2000. That's 74% inflation. B. You can clearly see 3 groups. 1. The plateauing group of oligopolies struggling because of low demands. 2. The skyrocketing group of industries lobbying the boomers to F us all. 3. The plummeting group of either newly specialized economies of scale or consumer electronics, which are heavily subsidized, or just HP with their ink printers. That's why they're cheap. They make money even before and long after you purchase the units. That's why, to some of you celebrating the RAM prices soaring for the potential comeback of dumb appliances, only in your dreams. They still sell dumb appliances, though rare. You can still buy $4,000 Sony TVs, but most choose to slap on a literal smartphone and sell those things for $400 instead of 10 times that, because they are heavily subsidized by every company having their logos on your remote and much more. Because they were paid even before they sell you those, and they will be paid well after they've sold you. They will forever need the RAMs to keep harvesting data about you. To them, that's the modern goldmine. Prices of consumer electronics going down over the years is not proof of deflation not being bad. It's not even proof of deflation. It's the proof any minor convenience will come with a much bigger cost, and you can easily fall for it no matter who you are. So deflation, bad. It's much easier to understand why when you know how it happens, because it has not always been like this. Disclaimer. Since we have moved on from real money, we no longer need to have the physical form on hand to perform transactions. For the simplicity of this video, we will assume all money is cash, and therefore, increasing money supply equals printing money. Again, for the snobs out there, these terms are no way in hell, not even remotely interchangeable, let alone synonymous. But please, for duck's sake, let's assume what most people assume so things can be easy to understand, okay? Since the beginning of the human concept called time, money has taken many shapes and forms. Important form number 1, and this is very crucial to how inflation happens. Any commodity we sold, there were no identical gold coins, no centralized governments, maybe no shops even. 0. Where could you buy what you needed? You didn't. You made it yourselves. But there could only be so many hours in one day, and so much you can do in your waking hours that you would want others to make things for you. That was why when you figured you would need a Substack, you went ahead and made one to pay for the 13 pigs, batons, and some pepper spray. Please stop promoting your Substack on your Instagram story We're not on there for such things. The pigs, the batons, and the pepper spray were all considered money, real money. And you used your own money to buy the pigs, the batons, and the pepper spray. This is also my answer to this comment I stumbled upon while doing my research for this video. Also, to elaborate on that, it's called work. You sell your labor in exchange for a little bit of the fake money, so you can barely buy what you need to survive. Your employer, your master, take all the surplus value, which later on is realized as what is called the profit. Important form, number 2. Precious things, i.e. metals. At some point, we collectively realize we don't want the batons and the pepper spray, and somehow still want the pigs, 13 of them, so we collectively settled on something precious that we all want. That's why technically gold is a commodity, and its value fluctuates. How much we value gold fluctuates, but it consistently has great value. And for a period of time, many currencies were actually tied to that value. You can still see things like the British pound, £1 sterling, the weight of 240 sterling silver coins, 0.349914114 kilograms, or 0.77142,8571429 pounds. Yes, £1 equals 3/4 of a pound. Take that, the 1 equals 2 guy. Important form number 3. Fiat money, specifically the currencies we're currently using. Those pieces of paper themselves worth next to nothing. What makes them valuable is we all agree that they are. Form number 1. The worth of the physical form itself is the value. Those were things essential for survival, made with your labor. Someone would need them. Everybody would need them. They themselves were useful, so somebody made them, not the other way round. That's super important for later. Form number 2. The physical form itself holds the value. 1 kilogram of gold worth exactly 1 physical kilogram of gold, which is valued at roughly $144,363 US at the time of writing. At some point, the quote-unquote government started to put those in locked rooms and circulate the papers instead. All the money represents what we value everything we own, and we all agreed to use them. Why did we do that? Naivety and blind trust. Why did we trust them? Because they used to own a ton of the valuable stuffs, e.g. gold, in comparison to the rest of us. Don't get me wrong, they still own a ton of the real things, just relatively not as much as they used to, not as concentrated as they used to. That's why there are multiple political parties and elections. Again, let's pretend all money now exists in the physical form of dollar bills. Cold hard cash, even though it's just 10% now. Here's exactly how inflation and deflation happens. Let's say, for example, these 4 pieces of paper representing 100% the value of everything. At a given moment, let's call that John with the H. Each piece of paper represents 25% of John. Inflation and deflation happen when either side of this equation moves disproportionately to each other. Now let's say Jerome Powell, the Trump appointee, is to print 1 more of the papers with his computer mouse. The 1-2 punch to steal from the future generations directly and indirectly, or I don't know, maybe JEE, the infamous PDF, with his back in 2014. It's the normal sense of money that it's only meaningful if it's tied to something valuable. No matter how many peers you have to do the reviews, if it's just make-believe like your clavicularity, it will remain a figment of your imagination. Again, of course, Powell doesn't print, and even when assuming he does, what he prints is absolutely worthless till it's backed by something valuable. He needs to give the money to some rich men with real assets. In the considered period of time, absolutely nothing is created. The 5 pieces of paper still represent 100% of John, but each now only equals to 20% of John. That means if you possess one of the original 4 pieces of paper, you now own less John. That's inflation. What about the other way round? What if John worths less? A bit lengthier, but bear with me here. Back to the 4 pieces of paper. That's a lot of John for the rich. Why don't we just stop printing money? Greed. Why not printing a whole lot of money and give it to normal people? Isn't that wealth transferred from the top to the bottom? Or I don't know, a KA, the trickling down part? Then the rich will be slightly less rich and they won't accept the fake money anymore, they say. The reality is, someone else will find their way to that position and bring things back to square one. Don't ask us how we know that. Moving on. Second scenario. After food and a good night's sleep, the rich tell you to come back to work to make more valuable stuffs. Let's say it's 10% of John in total for this particular occasion. That's 27.5% of John for each piece of paper. That's not good for nobody. That's deflation. Third scenario. The swinging entrance door guy buys all the farmlands for microslop to use oven bricks, to make subscription services nobody uses, fulfilling nobody's needs. They turn things that are valuable into worthless things. They take the coal, the fresh water, the metal, the rare earth out of the regular earth and absolutely disappear them. Not just kidnap, disappear. Nobody knows where they are now. Then dump the toxic waste onto that same land or a different one, making the value going down even more. Then have the audacity to publicly ask for a bailout. Yes, your little bit of John they gave you goes back to them. Eeny weeny, teeny weeny, shriveled little short. In this scenario, there are less John left. Let's say 90%. That's 90% divided by 4, so 22.5% each. 2.5% less John for each piece of paper. That's also inflation. Fourth scenario, war. Your taxes fund the destruction of humans, the labor and valuable stuffs, the capital. We end up with less John in the same way as the last scenario. You know what won't cause actual inflation? Free healthcare. Though the rich or the swamp would not love this for you purely out of the goodness of their kind hearts. Let's say you will die of old age, and you will have been healthy your whole life, and would not have needed any form of healthcare, which most certainly will not happen. Let's just assume that for a second, then funding other people's healthcare would still extend the use of their labor, which in turn means more taxes to better fund other public services that you definitely have and will benefit from. It bugs me how capitalists don't want to maximize the only resource that can make a difference. So according to this comment, the idea of maintaining at least a little bit of inflation as lube has been around for at least half a century. But why is deflation bad? They own a lot of both the valuable stuffs in the locked rooms and the papers. Does it even matter to them? 1. They say that money losing its value keeps you handing out the money. Although that's only little bits of John you own, and the rate of 2% is, to quote the Wall Street Journal's Nick Timiraos, low enough that people wouldn't pay attention to how high prices were going up. 2. They say that deflation is bad. They say working people will hold on to the money in hope for even cheaper prices. I do not buy that whole thing. Search Wealth Inequality in America by Politizane on YouTube. Now, and it is from 2012, quote, the poorest don't even register. The middle class is barely distinguishable from the poor. The top 10 to 20% were worse off than people assumed back then. The bottom half were just scraping by. Yes, in 2012. Serious question. The 1% versus you, who do you think own more money? Have you ever heard the anecdote about whether or not Bill Gates would pick up a $100 note off the ground? The rich would risk less. Some would just literally hold on to their money. Less money used to pay us. Sure, I've seen that. But someone currently making just barely enough to feed themselves, were food to get cheaper but we also to earn less, still just enough to feed ourselves. Do you think people would stop buying food just to save to buy diamond rings? In reality, deflation usually happens only when the two evils, either or both, take too much from us, and we the people cannot recover. were able to afford less. But they have also publicly stated that they are scared of deflation, because it might mean we are not on the track to be able to afford less and less. Betch, presented with the new demand, corporates with their sole purpose, acting in their best interests, aka maximizing profits, might individually change their prices in opposite directions, but as a whole, decrease the prices, aka deflation, to meet the new equilibrium point. Lower sales and lower prices simultaneously result in lower revenues for the quote-unquote economy, whoever that is, which in turn leads to less money to pay for labor's the next production cycle, and we're back to square one. But worse off. That's the vicious cycle that people have been talking about. Somebody will need to take a big hit to stop this cycle. From your experiences, tell me, has it ever been the rich? You're welcome. Courtesy of my useless bachelor degree. Frankly, we lost the plot as a species when that arguably paranoid humanoid, no longer the ultimate epitome of being unethical,